Woo! Hey there, Daily Scare Share. Day 388. We're starting from the beginning of the book, day 11. We're doing the book, Do One Thing a Day That Scares You. And that's what we're doing. We're doing one thing a day that stretches our comfort zone. Now, I did it all last year, and I'm going back to the beginning of the book because I skipped the first 30 pages or so of the book for a lot of reasons. Because in those first 30 pages, I start and stop doing this book like 7 different times. Now, today is, it's really fun to go back and see when I did this book in the first place, because I don't remember. This is like from 2014 and 15 and 17. I didn't do anything in it in 2016. And there's reasons for that as well. But it's letting me go back and history. And that's why it's so important to write things down. It's letting me go back and understand myself better, why I did or didn't do certain things. And actually, this was a really big deal day for me when I experienced it the first time. It was September 8th of 2014. And now, of course, it's almost 5 years later, 4.5 years later. And I'm going to share the lesson, and I'm going to tell you the story and what I wrote down on this day. It's a sayings day. I love the sayings days because they're so easy. Yesterday, I loved yesterday's saying. I hope you got as much out of it as I did, about trying everything 3 times. The first time you try it, to prove it's not going to kill you and that you can actually, live through it because you're scared and you're facing your fear. The second time you do it is to figure out how to do the thing. And the third time you do it is to decide, is this for me? Do I like it or not? I love that. I really enjoyed that one yesterday. Some things that we do that stretch our comfort zone, some of these activities are awesome and they really speak to us. That one really spoke to me. And this one today really speaks to me, not so much because, it speaks to me because it has for a long time, but also because of the event that happened on this day and what it means to me, and the message that I wasn't hearing, and why it was so important that what happened on this day. And then it spiraled into a whole lot of other things that set me in like a really weird downward spiral, and down and down and down until I finally started climbing out again in 2017. And it's events outside of us often control and impact what happens to us in our lives. And so this was a reminder of that. But let's read the saying first. The saying is, handy dandy magnifying glass, it's not that scary. It says, he that observeth the wind cannot sow, and he that regardeth the clouds shall not reap. It's from Ecclesiastes 11:4. And what that means to me is, and I wrote it down, what you see is what you get. WYSIWYG, remember that? What you see is what you get. It's kind of a computer term, but it's also a life term, because what you see, what you'll allow yourself to see or observe, is going to impact the results that you get. What you are willing to acknowledge and notice, what your brain will even allow you to see, is going to always impact what happens in your life, what results you get, what opportunities you see, everything. And I have a saying that I credit with a lot of good and bad things that have happened in my life. I say, you get what you expect. We only as human beings will ever get what we expect. And it's mostly on a subconscious level. A lot of us aren't even consciously aware of the expectations and the energy and the things that we're putting out into the world. So what you see, what you observe, is going to determine what you reap, what you will. It determines what you're even willing to do or put forth out into the world for effort. And what we put forth out into the world for effort is always going to determine what we get back. What we give is what we get back. What we sow, what we plant, what we put into place and start and initiate in the world based on our observations and our experiences and what we see, that is always going to determine what comes back to us. Life is like a boomerang. You throw out, you give things out into the world and of value, and you get equal or greater value back. That is the nature of the universe. And, we can argue with it if we want, but it's just the way the world works. So that's why I say always give 10 times more value out than you want to get back, or you think you should get back. And just let go of the expectation that you should get anything back. Just give and serve and love other people, and you will be provided for. The universe always provides for us. So what happened on this day, September 8th, 2014? Well, I wore, this is really scary, that I was on a mission after my sudden cardiac arrest in 2010 to exercise every single day for first for a year, but then that year turned into 2 and 3 and 4. And my father was really ill at this time. He had been struggling, and we weren't sure what was going on with him, but he was, going in and out of the hospital and having problems, and they couldn't really figure out what was going on with him. They weren't sure if it was his heart or what was going on, because he'd had several heart attacks and strokes in the past. He'd had open heart surgery. He almost died of the Lone Star tick, and he'd had cancer in the past. So the doctors weren't really knowing what was going on with him, but he was running a super high, no, that wasn't the high fever. Anyway, he was disoriented, he was falling, he was having some problems. And I was still trying to take care of myself really well during this time. So I had signed up for this exercise in the park program. I can't remember what it was called. Let me see if I wrote down here. Fit Hudson, Get Fit Hudson, it was called, in my small town. And so we would go down to a park in town called Lakefront Park. Hundreds of us would show up, and we would do these exercise programs with the trainers from an organization called Get Fit. And it was super fun. Well, they had a neon day. Now, being a saver and a hoarder, I kept all of my exercise clothes from the 80s when I used to work out at the health club and I was young and single and thought I was cute. Never, but I used to dress like I was when I went to the health club. And I had this neon flowered outfit still. So I got up my courage, since I was doing this do one thing a day that scares you thing, and I put on that exercise outfit and I went to the park. Well, one of the exercises they had us do was, it's called Indian sprints. So I don't want any political correctness comments about I said Indian sprints, because that's what they're called. What you do is you all line up and you run in a line, and the person in back sprints to the front as the group is running, and then they're in the front, and then the person in back sprints to the front. Well, I don't know why I thought I should do that, but I thought I should do that. So I was doing the Indian sprints, and in 2010, following my sudden cardiac arrest, I had a box, an ICD, an internal cardiac device installed. Well, doing Indian sprints spiked my heart rate up higher than the setting on my box, and my box went off twice. And they say it's like getting kicked in the chest by a donkey, and I'll second that. Oh my God. It's like getting kicked in the chest by a donkey from the inside out. It's like right into your heart. So lucky for me, I was walking down a hill, a little bitty hill, because I could feel my heart rate going crazy. So I don't know how I made it through that exercise, but as we were finishing up that exercise and I was walking down a hill, boom, my box went off. And I'm sure that my whole body just like shook and reverberated, but I didn't fall down. I was all proud of myself for not falling down. And I'm like, okay, I just froze in my tracks. I'm like, okay, I know what that is. I know what that was. And then, panic sets in and you're like, okay, what do I do? What do I do? I'm trying to remember what they told me to do if my box went off. And so I started to breathe. I started to take some deep breaths. And I'm like, okay, you got to calm down. You got to calm down. You got to slow your heart rate down. And I just kind of stood there and tried to breathe. And then boom, it went off again. And I'm like, holy crap. But I didn't fall down because I was still on this same incline, this little hill. So I'm like, yes, you didn't fall down. Well, lucky for me, some of the people that were taking the class as well, one was a nurse, and she actually saw what was going on and recognized it, which, I'd never experienced it before. So I knew what was going on because I'd been warned about it, but I really didn't know. So she came over and was talking to me and trying to calm me down. She's like, just breathe, calm down. You got to get your heart rate down. And I'm like, okay. And so then she hung out with me for a little while, and I went back and got calmed down and sat on my mat. And, you're supposed to call the ambulance and go to the hospital when something like this happens. When your box goes off once, it's not a huge deal, but when it goes off more than once, it's a big deal, and you're supposed to immediately go to the hospital and get checked out. Well, here I am in neon exercise clothes. I'm talking a leotard and leggings and a little overshirt and like neon socks and a headband, and I'm like, and a neon sweatshirt tied around my waist, and I'm like thinking, yeah, I'm not calling the ambulance. I'm not going to the hospital. So this amazing nurse sat with me for a while, calmed me down, and then I hopped in my car and drove home, and then I looked up the instructions of what are you supposed to do when you have your box go off. I call it my box, my Iron Man. I mean, it's called an internal cardiac device, and it's like defibrillators, the external cardiac devices, but it's built in. It's right in your chest, and the wires grow into your heart, and then when your heart tells you it needs a shock, it gives you a shock. And I was more upset that my box had gone off than anything else. I wasn't really scared that it had gone off. I was just shocked, which shock and fear, you know, they kind of feel the same way in your body. But I was surprised and shocked that it had gone off. Now, as I'm looking at this, it's really interesting to me, and it should have been at the time a wake-up call, because my sudden cardiac arrest was on September 7th of 2010, and this incident happened on September 8th of 2014. And it wasn't until a few years later that I realized I'm having all these shocking wake-up calls and events that happen right around Labor Day. Hello, there was a reason for that, but I didn't observe it then. Again, we get the results that we expect. But it was telling me that what I was doing right then in my life was, again, off track for what I should be doing. It also was because, you know, I was doing something. I mean, I should never run. That was the big lesson there for me, was that, yeah, unless a bear is chasing me or a tiger or an alligator is going to eat me or something, I'm not running. And, you know, the next day then, I read ahead the next day because I was curious what happened after that. And I did continue to do it for a couple of days after this. I didn't quit doing this, the book then. I kept doing it. So even though my box went off twice and I had to go to the doctor the next day, and I should have called the ambulance, I was too embarrassed to have the ambulance guys see me in my 1980s neon colored exercise wear. So today, what does this mean to me? Well, today it means that I should pay attention to the patterns that show up in my life. I really, the lesson for me today in 2018 is different than the lesson in 2014 for me. The lesson in 2014 was, you know, that I probably should pay attention to some things, and some things are for me and some things aren't for me. And just because there's people around me that are doing certain things doesn't mean I have to do them too. If everybody's jumping off a bridge, are you going to do it? No, I'm certainly not going to jump off a bridge. So we need to keep that in mind. Always listen to ourself and our bodies and what's right for us. And that's a lesson that still carries through today. I still need to do that today. But today it means, and it's a reminder to me, that you get what you expect and that what you see is what you get. And keep in mind that you only see what your subconscious will allow you to see. You only observe, you only hear, you only listen to. And this was really shown to me in my marriage. I realized, and I didn't realize it till after probably I got divorced, that I would tell my husband something, and if he didn't want to hear it, it was like I never told him. He would often say, well, why didn't you tell me that? You never told me that. And I'm like, I would clearly have written down like somewhere that I had told him, we had talked about something. And he would then say, he would still say, no, you never told me that. I never heard that. Because it was something that he didn't want to hear. And it wasn't until after we were divorced that I realized, oh my God, that is why he honestly didn't remember hearing it, because it was something that he didn't want to hear. We all do that. But I didn't realize even that I do that, like we all do, until I saw that behavior in him after the fact. And I'm like, oh, I guess we all do that. So keep in mind that you can only see what you're looking for. So look for more. Look for more of what you want to see in the world. All right, that's long enough. I will, of course, be with you all tomorrow. Don't be scared. You got this. Go out and look for things that make you happy in the world. Look for things that can stretch your comfort zone, because everything we want is right outside our comfort zone.